With me today are 3 students from the Natural Gourmet Institute. Welcome, ladies. Do you love the flavor of citrus as much as I do? When I go to a restaurant, I look at desserts first, hoping that there's a lemon-flavored something on the menu. Well, you're going to love this recipe. With a press-in brown butter cookie crust and silky one-pot lemon curd, it is the ultimate in simplicity and taste. Before we make the fantastic lemon curd, I want to show you how to make the brown butter shortbread cookie crust. To brown the butter, take 1 stick of butter and melt it over low heat until the milk solids turn a dark brown, and it smells so good. It's the same kind of butter that my mom would cook to put over her string beans, over her potato pierogi. And the solids you can see right here, you don't want all of that in your crust. So just strain it out. So here's your brown butter. Get it to room temperature and add 1 teaspoon of best vanilla. Lovely. So that is done. Now, the crust itself, the dry ingredients. Have you made a nice press-in crust yet?
Yes, we have.
So 1 cup of flour, 1/4 cup of granulated sugar.
Do you use all-purpose flour?
Oh yeah, this is all-purpose unbleached flour. I always use that for my general baking needs. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. Just a little leavening to make it a little lighter. And then whisk this together. For a crust like this works just fine. So we're going to now mix the brown butter. And on this marble counter, I'm using a little pot holder to hold the bowl. So there. And now just mix this together.
Do you have issues with staining on the marble?
Oh, I don't care about that. Now, I find that you have a real tart pan, a traditional tart pan with a removable bottom. It helps a lot in taking the tart out of the pan. So now just put your crummy mixture right into your pan. Now you could do it with your fingers, you do it with the back of your hand like this, but I find it really works very well if you put a piece of plastic wrap, and you can spray the plastic wrap a little bit with the vegetable spray, just to make it non-stick. Now just press, also taking the crust up the sides of the pan. You can make these crusts ahead of time. You can pre-bake them, put them in the freezer, well wrapped, and they're ready. It's nice to have the idea of a dessert ready to go in the freezer. So now this should be chilled for about 30 minutes before you dock it and bake it. We have one that's already chilled, and now docking means making holes in the crust to prevent eruptions while you're baking it. There. And now a round of parchment like this works very well. It's a little hard to fit in there completely, so do you know about crumpling?
No.
This is the crumple method.
French technique.
And so now it's much more malleable. See this? Now look how easy it is. It just takes the shape of the tart. Parchment is the perfect liner for pre-baking. And these are beans from my antique jar. The beans are almost as old as the jar. And this jar dates from probably 1900 or so. And so this whole thing is called blind baking. And this gets popped into a 350-degree oven for approximately 15 minutes and bake for about 20 minutes. Remove the paper and the beans and bake for another 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so now for the curd itself. First, soften gelatin into 2½ teaspoons of water. For a tart like this that you want to cut nicely into pieces, that little tiny bit of gelatin really does the trick. Okay, so now, thank you for the 8 egg yolks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so in here, a cup of sugar.
How many chickens do you have, Martha?
Oh, I think of 200 or so. Now, into the same mix, we need a tablespoon of lemon zest.
I've never seen anyone great with that side up, and that makes so much sense. It collects
they're always going like this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, no, this way I can see exactly how much I have. Your juice, 2/3 cup, fresh squeezed lemon juice, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1 1/4 sticks of butter. So this is ready to go onto medium-high heat, and it will not curdle. So it's just about to come to a simmer. So now this comes off the stove, and immediately put in your gelatin. Get that right in and stir. Now this filling goes right into the cooled and already baked crust. Isn't that gorgeous? You put this through a fine sieve. So now this goes into your refrigerator. Shake it a little tiny bit to smooth it out. Okay, 1 hour in the fridge. So here are our 8 egg whites that went with the 8 egg yolks. To this we add 2 cups of sugar. We're making a beautiful Swiss meringue that will go on top of the tart. So we warm these until all the sugar granules are dissolved. Oh. And that's done just over a bain-marie like this. Whisk a little bit until you see all that sugar dissolve. The sugar will dissolve at about 160 degrees. Okay, so we have our sugar dissolved, and now you can just put it on your mixer. Now, many students ask, what is one of my essential tools in the kitchen? It's a stand mixer.
I'm getting married this summer, and I was going to ask you that when I'm setting up my registry. What's one thing that you suggest?
Oh, you don't have one of these yet?
Not yet.
Shocking.
Not a personal one. Not
that
a
is
personal
shocking.
Very strong arms.
So here we have our egg whites and sugar heated, and they're going to start getting beautiful, silky, smooth, voluminous, a perfect meringue. 2 teaspoons of vanilla. 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. So this takes about 5 minutes for it to get really fluffy. Now also for the meringue, this is another nice present for your weddings registry. I don't think it's expensive enough for a weddings registry. I think it's good for a shower. You have to have one of those.
That's horrible.
Okay, so it looks good. I think it has beautiful peaks.
Yeah.
The best part about baking.
Oh. Now we can just scoop that into our piping bag. Notice I have the bag folded over. That way I don't get it all around the top. And then you grab with your hands like that. And you're really going to be pushing the meringue out with this hand. So you can start in the middle.
You could eat just that.
Try to make them pretty much the same size. Now it gets even better when you torch it. So what you want to do really is toast it without burning it.
So pretty.
It's so pretty. And that little bit of toasting actually makes the meringue taste better.
Really?
So now to unmold it, it should come right out of this tart shell. When it's cool, the ring can come off onto your arm like that. And we're just going to put this like this. Don't try to take the bottom off. It looks like it came out of the best bakery.
Right.
It tastes like it came out of the best bakery. And it came out of your own kitchen, so enjoy. And now for our next delicious curd. Sweet, tart, and refreshing passion fruit curd takes classic yellow cupcakes to a whole new level. Bursting with tropical fruit flavor, this recipe calls for frozen passion fruit puree, which means you can have fresh taste of passion fruit all year round. I do have some fresh passion fruits right in front of me, and I'll show you a little later what they look like inside. They're weird, but delicious. So let's start with the cupcakes themselves. So 2 sticks of unsalted butter. And I always try to find best quality unsalted butter. So high fat content, low water content, that's what you're looking for. 1 3/4 cups of granulated sugar. We'll let that get nice and creamy. Then we're going to sift the flour. 1 1/2 cups of all-purpose unbleached flour. And 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Rule of thumb with baking powder, 1 teaspoon per cup of flour. And so just whisk this together. And now, oh, this looks so nice and creamy. See how light and nice it is? So just break your eggs. I prefer breaking them into a bowl just in case there's something wrong with an egg. But these homegrown eggs are generally so fabulous. They just don't have too many problems.
How fresh are those eggs?
Laid yesterday.
Yesterday.
We have 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and in a little pitcher, 1 1/4 cups of whole milk, which we're going to add alternately with the dry ingredients. So I definitely would be asking for one of these mixers on my wedding registry. I still have my mother's original mixer, stand mixer.
And it works.
Still works, very well built. And just get out the last little bit of dry ingredients and the last little bit of milk. So let that beat up a little bit because we're going to fill cupcake papers. So I'm going to start with the half-ounce scoop, that in the bottom paper. And I often use, and you can also go up the side of the bowl like that, 1.5 ounces. See how nice?
Yeah.
Now these are going to take only 20 minutes to bake, so it's a good idea to fill both trays, put them in at the same time, and then if you have room in your oven for 2, you can then just turn them around a little bit halfway through baking. So just squiggle them a little bit like that, even them out a little bit, and get them right into your oven. Check your temperature. So now we're making the passion fruit curd, and it is delicious. The only difference between this and the lemon curd is that this one does not have any gelatin in it.
Okay.
Because we're going to be piping this filling into the cupcakes, and you don't need any stiffness whatsoever. All you want is that delicious flavor. So just forget the gelatin. 8 egg yolks, and thanks for separating these, and 1 cup of granulated sugar. And we have 10 tablespoons of room temperature butter and 2/3 of a cup of passion fruit puree. Now, a lot of people say, oh, what is passion fruit? Well, it's these wrinkly little fruits, and they look really ugly. And if you saw that at the grocery store, if you're uninitiated, you don't buy that because you think, gosh, what do I want a wrinkly old ugly thing like that? This is a pretty unripe passion fruit. It becomes this after maybe another week or so. So you look for these, and I'll just cut open this one so you can see what's inside.
Wow.
And it looks like something like maybe the baby threw up, but the taste is extraordinary. But this is the frozen puree that you can just buy in. So just add the passion fruit juice. Don't forget your little 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Brings out more flavor. And that's it. So put this on the stove and bring it to a simmer. Break up all those egg yolks. Passion fruits come from southern Brazil. Have you been to Brazil?
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's on my
It's
list.
a great trip. I went on a trip up the Amazon, and we just ate fruit after fruit after fruit that we had never tasted before. Really good. And piranha fish. We ate them every night.
Really?
We caught them and ate them, and they are delicious. They're like butterfish,
Wow.
Wow.
except for their mouths.
Your teeth.
So you can see that it's certainly getting thicker. And now it's time to kind of take that right off the heat. So to fill the cupcakes, we'll want this to be cooler, room temperature at least. So have you made filled cupcakes before?
No.
Yes.
You
Few
have?
times, yeah.
Oh yeah, what did you fill them with?
Strawberry puree.
Oh, nice. So here's our curd. When it's chilled, look at the difference. Very firm and nice. And there's several different ways to fill a cupcake. You can actually cut a little circle out of the top and fill. I just discovered the apple corer. And you can just take a little core out of the center, just turn that like that. This works so well, and it'll give you just large enough indentation to put the curd in. And then we're going to also frost these with a nice buttercream.
It's nice to have another use for that apple core.
Yeah, you know, it does work. Now I have the curd in the pastry bag fitted with a small filler tip. These long tips are specifically for filling. If you're going to inject into a cream puff or an eclair, you use a tip like this. And just be careful of how much you put in. Look at that, isn't that beautiful?
Color's so pretty.
Just right. And then decorating the tops of the cupcakes, choose a design that appeals to you. You can do it by hand, of course, or you can also use a pastry tip. I love these big star tips. And this is a vanilla flavored Swiss meringue. So for your second wedding cakes, if you're
Groom's
going,
cake.
your groom's cake, you can do this. And I would chill these.
Before you bake them.
No, these are not getting baked. This is not meringue. This is buttercream.
Oh.
Do not put this in the oven. You will have a mess.
So it's called Swiss meringue, but it's butter.
Swiss meringue buttercream.
Buttercream.
Yes. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we're now going to do a beautiful Genoise cake with a raspberry curd. Raspberry.
Yum.
When it comes to making fruit curd, citrus might be the first flavor that comes to mind, but you can use a variety of different fruits, including raspberries. It's not only delicious, it also makes a colorful filling for a delicate Genoise cake. So have you ever made a fruit curd other than lemon?
No.
No. Well, this raspberry is sweet and colorful. You need a whole tablespoon of lemon zest, so that's about a tablespoon. Now into a heavy bottomed pot, 8 large egg yolks, 1/4 cup of lemon juice. That adds a little depth of flavor to the sweet raspberries. 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and a cup of sugar. And, butter. Don't forget the butter. We need 10 tablespoons of butter, and this is already cut up into small pieces. It'll melt quickly. And cornstarch, 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. That'll add a little bit of body. So this goes right onto the flame. Cook until it's lightly simmering around the edges, stirring most of the time. So Alexi, would you come up here and just keep stirring?
Sure.
If you find it a little hot, here, use a towel to hold the whisk, okay?
Okay.
So you just keep whisking. And I'm going to puree the raspberries. 1 cup of raspberries in a mini food processor. Oh, Alexi, I forgot to put the lemon zest.
Ah.
Okay. Really has to be bubbling around the edges. Okay. Too hot for you?
No, it's
Okay. Good. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Exactly.
Is that what they say somewhere? So I'm just pureeing our raspberries. And this goes in after you take the curd off the stove.
Starting to bubble.
Starting? Okay. Okay, I think that's good. And now you can just add your raspberries. And this is the filling for your Genoise birthday cake. Let's make this a birthday cake. And then, because you don't want all those seeds of the raspberry, we will put this through a strainer.
Are there any other uses for curds besides cakes and...
Swirled into homemade ice cream.
Yeah.
I've had that. I've made that. So after this is strained, I'm going to put this in the refrigerator covered with plastic wrap, and we'll get on with making the Genoise. Have you made Genoise before? Is that one of the basic things that you learn at school?
Yeah.
One of the cakes
Yeah.
we learned.
So we like this, this is a very European style. We're using 2/3 cup of cake flour. It's lighter than the regular all-purpose flour. And we're going to use a 1/2 cup of cornstarch. So sift those dry ingredients together. And that basically is your flour. Because of the cornstarch, I'm putting it through a fine sieve rather than whisking it smooth.
Yeah.
So that's your dry ingredients. And now the brown butter, we did it for our crust. Now we're going to put this into the Genoise batter. And the difference between sponge and Genoise is butter. So this is 6 tablespoons of butter, browned and then strained. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, so let that cool. And now we mix 5 large eggs, a 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of superfine sugar. We're making a very, very light and airy cake.
Martha, if you didn't have superfine sugar, could you create something similar by putting regular sugar in like a food processor?
Yeah, I would. That's the way a food processor works very well. Just pour it in slowly as the blade is running. So now warm this so that the sugar granules are completely dissolved. And because it's super fine, this is going to happen quickly. Warm this over simmering water. So in addition to dissolving the sugar over heat, it also relaxes the protein in the eggs, making a more delicate combination. So Emily, I know you have to leave your first day at a new job.
I have my first day at work, so I gotta go.
Okay,
but
well-
thank you for letting me come today.
Oh, well,
It was
I'm very
amazing.
happy you could make it, and please visit with us again.
Yes, everything was delicious.
Come work in our kitchen sometime.
I will,
good.
gladly.
After you finish your course.
Bye, thank you.
Okay, so here we have our warmed sugar and egg yolks, and just start beating until it's a ribbon, nice golden ribbon. Now our pans, I didn't mention the pans. They are buttered, then floured. A liner of parchment paper is right in the bottom, so the cake will come out very nicely. So you can see that this beautiful batter is light and fluffy, and it's almost doubled in bulk.
Yeah.
So this is beautiful. I would say that's a nice ribbon.
Perfect.
So we need about a cup of this mixture to lighten the butter. And we'll fold our dry ingredients. And stir only to incorporate, not to deflate. No lumps of flour and cornstarch. And now the butter mixture goes in. So here we have a very nice, well-incorporated batter. And before it does deflate, we want to get it into the pans and into a 350-degree preheated oven. You're going to love this genoise. Set your timer 25 minutes until the cake starts to pull apart from the sides of the pan. So now we have 2 layers. Slice them in half with a serrated knife because we want a 4-layer cake. Make sure that your knife is sharp, and a good genoise will not fall apart. And we should use this as our bottom layer. So now, with a spatula, start layering your raspberry curd right on the cake. Now this is only for the filling. We're going to frost the cake with whipped cream and garnish with fresh raspberries, of course. So don't go right to the edge because the weight of the next layer will kind of push the curd out to the edge. And you can use this one. Delicate, light. It's exactly what you hope for in a genoise. And the whipped cream topping will cover up any unevenness in the cake itself. And then you can turn your last layer upside down. So there, now this should go right into the refrigerator for at least an hour, and preferably a little longer. We have one that's all ready to put on the whipped cream. I have it on its serving pedestal, and these little pieces of parchment paper serve to keep the pedestal clean. You'll pull them out after you do your decorating. So 2 cups of whipped cream with 2 tablespoons of confectioner's sugar. And just dollop it on. It's so nice to have a whipped cream cake.
So good.
Very Italian. Take it down the sides. And this is not a fine frosting job. We just want to cover everything with whipped cream. And then chill it again before serving. Let's see what it looks like inside.
Oh, look at that.
So pretty. Delightful cake. A few raspberries, a silver fork, and I think you have a really beautiful, tasty, unusual layer cake. Raspberry curd, genoise, and whipped cream. Enjoy, and thanks for watching. See you next time on Martha Bakes. Have a vanilla bean lengthwise, then place it cut side up. Hold the knife perpendicular to the bean and run the blade over each cut side, bearing down to scrape out the more than 25,000 flavor-packed seeds that are inside an average vanilla bean. And also, don't toss out the spent vanilla bean. Bury it in a sugar jar to flavor the sugar.